2 weeks before December 25th, the text that uninvited my children arrived. It was a quick message from my mom, Linda, that never even used their names. "Hey, honey, we're doing something smaller this year. Just immediate family. Hope that's okay." I stared at that sentence long enough for my coffee to go cold. Immediate family? I'm her son. My name is Daniel Reed, and at 39 I have a wife, Hannah, and 2 kids, Grace and Liam. I texted back, trying to keep my thumbs from punching the screen. "Who's coming?" Hours passed. Then she replied, "Just Jason and Brooke and the kids. It's easier that way. You know how crowded it gets." I set the phone down and let the old reel play. It always starts the same way. Jason with a science fair ribbon while I hold the plywood volcano that never erupted because someone plugged the baking soda hole with glitter glue. Thanksgiving ping pong on the basement table where points mysteriously went missing when I was serving. Just the 4 of us photos that somehow never meant the 4 of us. Hannah and me, Grace and Liam, but always my parents, Jason, Brooke, and whichever of their kids was in a matching sweater that year. When Grace was in kindergarten and won a school art prize, Mom hung the ribbon on the fridge for a day, then moved it to the special drawer that eats things. When Jason's middle child learned a new piano piece, Mom live-streamed the practice and texted a link family-wide. "We can all be proud," she wrote then. I wanted to believe all meant us too. But all has a way of shrinking depending on who is holding it. Jason is my older brother by 2 years, the family's golden boy since birth. He and Brooke have 3 kids, great kids, honestly, loud as marching bands. But in our parents' house their noise was never called chaos. It was energy. Meanwhile, my 2 are quieter, more sensitive, careful with their words and their space. And somehow we're always the ones branded too much. We've spent Christmas at my parents' place in Kansas City every year since before Grace was born. That's 11 straight Decembers of crowding into their over-decorated living room, watching my dad, Tom, fall asleep during Elf, eating ham baked 10 minutes past reasonable, and smiling like it was all part of the charm. This year, apparently, my kids, Grace and Liam, weren't included because there wasn't room. I didn't respond. Not then. I didn't argue or call. I just sat with it, feeling the words spread like a thin layer of frost over the morning. Hannah told me maybe my parents were overwhelmed. Maybe it wasn't personal. But Hannah has never been on the receiving end of my family's pecking order. She gets polite smiles and practiced warmth. I get the side eye when Liam doesn't want to hug someone, or when Grace politely says no to dessert. I didn't tell the kids. I told them we were having a quiet Christmas this year, just the 4 of us. They were disappointed, but they didn't push. Still, on Christmas Eve I loaded the car. Every gift I had wrapped for my parents, for Jason and Brooke, for their kids. I told Hannah I wanted to drop them off, then head home. Be decent, at least. She squeezed my shoulder and said, "Okay." We pulled onto my parents' street around 3 in the afternoon. The curb was already packed with cars. I had to park halfway down the block. That was my first clue. The second clue was the front door propped wide open, even though the air had that glass-brittle winter bite. I didn't even make it to the porch before I could see inside. Every light was on. The fireplace snapped and crackled. Laughter rolled in waves from the living room. Jason's kids were everywhere, wrapping paper mid-air, toys skating across the hardwood, pop music bouncing off the walls. My mom was snapping pictures, my dad was pouring wine, Brooke was handing out plates. So much for no room. The smell hit me first, pine needles and clove-stuck oranges, the same scent my mom used to make by simmering spices on the stove when I was a kid. Back then, the open door meant the neighbors would drift in with casseroles and stories. Back then, I believed a house could hold anyone if the people inside wanted it to. I could see the mantle from the sidewalk, stockings labeled in glitter glue, my parents' 2 names bracketing 5 smaller ones in neat order. No blank space left, no nail waiting for a 6th or 7th. Music spilled out. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and I had an absurd flash of kneeling on that very rug at 10 years old, retying a crooked bow on a box I'd saved for weeks to buy my mom. She cried that year. She called me thoughtful. Some part of me still expects that woman to step through the doorway with the same eyes and say, "Daniel, you're here. We saved you a seat." I turned around, walked back to the car, popped the trunk. Hannah didn't say a word. I lifted the gifts back in. All of them. We drove home in silence. The The kind of silence where you hear every turn of the tires. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I was past that. The anger had burned through and hardened into something like resolve. The next morning, while the rest of the world posted matching pajamas and obligatory group photos, I decided that if there wasn't room for us at Christmas, then I would make room for the truth online. I didn't name names. I didn't write in flames. I wrote what I had been drafting in my head since the night before. Funny how some kids get to be the center of Christmas while others get quietly uninvited because there's not enough room. Hope everyone enjoyed the space. We did. Just us and the truth this year. I attached a photo I'd snapped on our living room floor. The pile of untouched gifts I had reloaded from our trunk, each one labeled, wrapped, and now sitting under our tree, unopened. Then I tagged every adult in my family. Every single one. It didn't take long. Jason texted first, 15 minutes later. What is this about? I didn't answer. Brooke followed with a string of pearls disguised as sentences. I don't know what you're implying, but this seems unfair to your parents. Maybe talk to them instead of making this public. I let that one sit too. Then my mom called. 3 times. I didn't pick up. Her voicemail landed next. She wanted me to take it down, said I was causing unnecessary drama, said I was blowing things out of proportion. Not a single word about Grace or Liam. Not one. I posted again, still not deleting anything. My kids deserve an explanation. They're not too young to feel left out, and I'm not too old to pretend silence is polite. If you want this gone, say something real to them. Not to me. You know where to find us. After that, my dad called. Not me. He called Hannah. I guess they assumed she'd be the peacemaker. He said they didn't want this to ruin the family. Asked if we could come over and talk. Hannah told him we weren't interested in a living room summit where our kids would be treated like background noise again. That night, we pulled the unopened gifts closer, sat on the floor with Grace and Liam, and opened them together. I didn't editorialize. I didn't speak. I watched. I watched the way both of them paused after each box, as if waiting for a doorbell that wouldn't ring, waiting for someone to say there'd been a big misunderstanding. None came. Grace turned a box in her lap and asked, too casually, "Do we send these to them now?" Hannah and I looked at each other. Grace didn't mean my parents or my brother. She meant the idea of them, the people who were supposed to want these gifts. She was asking if we should still pretend. Liam lined his new toy cars in an exacting row, bumper to bumper, then left a deliberate gap between the third and the fourth. Parking, he said. A space for something that wasn't arriving. Last year we squeezed on my parents' couch and Jason's oldest read Luke's nativity verses with hiccuping seriousness. Grace had been the one to gently correct a misread word, and my dad had said, always so precise, with a chuckle that had felt like praise and a poke at once. Tonight, precision was how we survived, tearing paper carefully, sliding ribbon into a bowl for reuse, naming every piece of what remained. The 4 of us, the couch, the tree, the quiet that did not need permission. And I wasn't finished. For 5 years I'd been helping my parents financially. Quietly. Monthly. Not a performance, just love. I covered little things that grow teeth when you ignore them. Repairs, prescriptions, groceries when the week ran long. It wasn't charity. It was family. On average I sent $400 a month, sometimes more around the holidays. Over 5 years, that was at least $24,000. I never asked for anything in return. I didn't dangle it or keep score. I barely even told Hannah the totals until that night. When I opened my banking app, I didn't make a speech. I went into recurring payments and canceled the automatic transfer to my parents' account. One click. That was it. Hannah leaned over my shoulder and read the screen. She sat up straighter when she saw how long I'd been doing it. They needed it, she said. And I need a family who doesn't lie to my kids and call it easier, I said. She didn't argue. The next morning, Mom texted again. This time she asked if we could come over that weekend and talk, without the internet watching. I replied with a single sentence. Only if Grace and Liam get an apology first. She left me on read. By New Year's, the story had started to leak out beyond the people I tagged. A few cousins, Aaron, Julia, messaged, wanting to know what happened. Apparently Jason and Brooke were telling anyone who would listen that I had overreacted because our kids didn't come to a Christmas that wasn't a big deal. But there were photos floating around. The tree, the matching outfits, the dessert tower that looked like a 5-layer top hat. Not a big deal, right? On the 5th, The transfer was supposed to go out. It didn't. That afternoon I got a text from my dad. Just a question mark. No, how are you? No, we miss the kids. Just? I typed back. No more financial support until the people I love most are treated with the same basic respect you give Jason's kids. You had a chance to fix it. You still do. This time he answered. You're being cruel. We don't deserve this. Cruel. I stared at the word like a splinter in my thumb. Then I replied. Cruel is telling your son his children aren't welcome and pretending it's about space. Cruel is letting them believe they weren't immediate enough. This isn't cruelty. It's consequences. He didn't respond. But Brooke did. And her message deserves its own paragraph, if only for the way it sounded like a PR memo dressed as a concern. It was almost midnight when it arrived. Long polished. Rinsed of sincerity. She opened with, I hope you and the kids are doing okay. Then pivoted to her point. She said my post had caused confusion among the family, that the kids were asking questions, that she and Jason didn't appreciate being painted as the reason for the rift. She used words like narrative and misunderstandings, and said, it would be best for everyone if you deleted the post and moved forward. Then she slipped in a line that made my jaw clench. You've always been so generous with your support, and we all appreciate it. I'd hate to see one misunderstanding jeopardize the foundation of this family. What we've built. Like I was a business partner who had breached a contract. Like the years of covering bills and dropping everything to help my parents were merely structural contributions I was now threatening to withhold. Bad for the brand. I didn't respond right away. I forwarded the message to Cousin Aaron and Aunt Laura, both of whom had already checked in on me. Their replies were blunt. Manipulative. Not sorry, just uncomfortable. I'm so sorry, Dan. The next afternoon I wrote back to Brooke. I posted the truth. If it makes people uncomfortable, maybe they should ask why. My children were excluded. You didn't speak up. Neither did Jason. If you're worried about your reputation, that's on you. As for the money, that ended when the lies began. I owe my kids more than I owe this family's image. She didn't reply. 3 days later, Mom texted, I want to talk. Just us. Let's leave the past in the past. I asked what I had asked a dozen times. Will you apologize to Grace and Liam? Her answer, I just don't want to say something wrong and make things worse. There it was, crystallized. Better to say nothing than to admit what she did, even to a couple of kids who just wanted to be included. So I told her we were done. No more helping with utility bills. No more surprise Amazon orders when their dog needed food or when Dad's blood pressure cuff broke again. Done showing up to a door that opened one way. Then came the silence. Not a thoughtful one, but a stubborn one. Until a Tuesday, when a white envelope showed up in our mailbox with our last name written in glitter curly letters. No return address, but I knew Brooke's stationery when I saw it. Inside was a pastel trifold invitation with balloons and gold foil. One of their kids was turning 10. They were throwing a circus-themed blowout, bounce house, face painting, cotton candy, a magician, and at the bottom in gold script, all cousins welcome. I set the card on the counter and stared at it like it might sprout fangs. After weeks of silence, after being told there wasn't room for my kids at Christmas, suddenly there was room for a carnival. Hannah stepped in from the garage, wiped her hands on her jeans, read the card, and gave a disbelieving laugh. So, now they want them there, she said. We didn't say more. We didn't have to. We both knew what this was, image control. A cleanup job. The family version of a press release. I sat with the invite for a day. Then I did the hard thing. I told Grace and Liam. Grace frowned right away. Liam looked at the floor. Why now? Grace asked. I don't know. I said, because I wasn't going to lie. Will Grandma and Grandpa be there? Liam asked. Yes. He shook his head. I don't want to go. That was that. My kids knew what the sudden welcome was worth. I felt both proud and scraped raw. But I wasn't done. I set the card on the counter and stared at it. Hannah stepped in from the garage, wiped her hands on her jeans, read the card, and gave a disbelieving laugh. So, now they want them there, she said. I snapped a photo of the invitation. I started a new text message and added only 4 recipients. My mom, my dad, Jason, and Brooke. Beneath the photo, I wrote, no room for them at Christmas, but now that there's a magician and an audience, suddenly there's room at the party. We won't be there. My kids don't need performative love. It took less than 5 minutes for my phone to light up. Brooke replied directly to the group text. Seriously. as if I were the unreasonable one. Then my dad called Hannah's phone, pretending he just wanted to talk it through. She handed me the phone. He started with the script. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Things were misunderstood. No one wanted to hurt anyone. Then he asked if I would stop sending messages like that so we could handle this as a family. He never said Grace or Liam. Not once. He talked about the situation, the family, the tension. Nothing about the two people at the center of it. You want it gone? I said. Then apologize to Grace and to Liam. Look them in the eye and say excluding them was wrong. Do that, and I'll take everything down. He was quiet for a long breath. Then he said, That's not going to happen. Then neither is this party, I said, and hung up. They still thought this was about appearances. They still thought I was the problem because I refused to keep their secrets polished. The party came and went. We stayed home. Liam built a Lego city so elaborate I had to take pictures of every angle. Grace curled up and finished a book in a single afternoon. I grilled on the back patio with a hat pulled over my ears because the wind cut like a blade. We played board games until the timer ran out, and the living room looked like fun had actually lived there. I knew there would be pictures. Brooke can't help herself. The next morning, her Facebook looked like a catalog. Group photos, close-ups of the face painter, Jason pretending to juggle. In every photo, my parents were beaming, holding Jason's youngest as though showcasing their greatest achievement. Not a single mention of Grace or Liam. Not even a missed a few cousins. It was like we never existed. I scrolled once, saw the whole happy performance. Then, with a few quick taps, I muted all of them, my parents, Jason, and Brooke. I didn't need to burn the bridge. I just needed to silence the noise coming from it. A few days later, my sister-in-law on Hannah's side invited us to dinner. Just us. No undertones. Her kids adore mine. Nobody polices hugs. Nobody assigns value to volume. Over pasta and garlic bread, I told her the whole story, money and all. She listened, then asked a question that hit like a gentle hammer. Why did you help them for so long? At first, the answer was easy. They're my parents. They needed help. But underneath that sat a harder truth. Somewhere along the way, the transfers had become payments. Not payments for groceries. Payments for belonging. I could track it if I wanted to. $120 when the dryer belt snapped and Dad couldn't get the part until next week. $265 when Mom's prescription changed and the copay leapt like a startled deer. $79 for an emergency pet gate when Jason's youngest started wandering and there were too many stairs at my parents' place. $800 one September when property taxes came due, and it must have been a clerical error. All of it labeled in my banking app with neutral words. Household, medical, utilities, as if the line between help and tribute were a technicality. The worst part isn't the totals. It's the memory of my mother's voice the night I set up the first transfer. Daniel, you're a blessing. I wanted to be. I still do. But blessings don't come with conditions stamped in invisible ink. Family shouldn't, either. If the only receipt they recognize is silence, then this is the first refund I've ever issued. For a seat at a table that kept getting pushed just out of reach. Even then, they shortchanged my kids. A week later, Mom texted, We miss the kids. Can we start fresh? No apology. No ownership. Just a wish to paint over the past with a new coat. I typed slowly. You can see them when you acknowledge what you did. You don't have to grovel. Just say it to their faces. We were wrong, and you matter. It has been 3 months. No reply. Jason and Brooke haven't spoken to me since the night of the post. My parents haven't seen Grace and Liam in person. I expected to feel guilt like a shadow that followed me from room to room. I don't. What I feel is quieter. It's the feeling of setting down a heavy bag you didn't realize you'd been carrying all day. Not a sudden lightness, but a slow, spreading relief in muscles you'd forgotten weren't supposed to ache. Peace found us when we stopped chasing acceptance from people who believed love was conditional. I still love my parents. I still love my brother and his kids. But love without honesty curdles into something that looks like politeness and tastes like hunger. I'm done swallowing it. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if they will ever say the words. If my mom will sit across from Grace and Liam, clasp her hands, and tell them the simple truth. If my dad will call me, not Hannah, and say he was wrong. If Jason will admit that staying silent is its own kind of betrayal. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I know this. They remember what it cost them. They remember the day the automatic transfer stopped. They remember the post that didn't name names and still named everything. They remember the invitation, the crisis management move that fell flat. They remember the afternoon they traded a chance to heal their family for a few hours of entertainment. The photos from that party are still up. Anyone scrolling sees a celebration. But those who truly know family see the full picture. They see who is missing. If they ever choose to change, my children will have an example of what it means to hold your line without losing your heart. They will know that a family isn't measured by square footage, but by the space it makes in its heart. Until then, our living room is big enough for the four of us. Big enough for the truth to have a seat at our table. Every month, I'm reminded that love is an action you can see. It looks like staying. It sounds like an apology. And when those are missing, it looks like boundaries and sounds like peace. Learning to build those boundaries without bitterness has been a journey, and it's a topic I'm incredibly passionate about. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.